Hi, I'm Teri Johnson, and currently I am the president of the Loveland Historical Society, and I also teach Lone Tree School for the Loveland Museum, which I've actually done for 35 years. So history is a passion of mine. I would invite you today to come on a little walk with me, a little stroll back in history. I need you to use your imagination and think about what this was like way back. Well, let's even go past the 1800s. The Native Americans, of course, were here first. The Arapaho used to camp, about a mile or so east and south of here along the Big Thompson River whenever they did their semi-annual buffalo hunts. As a matter of fact, they said that a couple miles from here, you could see up to 5,000 head of buffalo roaming around a couple of times a year. People started to settle in the area. Mariano Medina came in 1859 out west of town and had a settlement there. The Osborns, the Washburns started to come more south and east of town, and a town started down there. First it was called Winona, after Judge Washburn's daughter. Then later it had the nickname of Old St. Louis because of the flour mill that Mr. Dowdy had down there. The railroad decided that it needed to come through the area, and it did not want to stop down where Old St. Louis was because that's down in the river bottom. That's too hard to get the train started again from such a low area. Well, David Barnes owned a wheat field up here, and he said he would donate some land and then sell some lots for the town of Loveland if it wanted to move up here. And by the way, the name Loveland came from the president of the railroad, W.A.H. Loveland is how it got its name. Mr. Barnes named it after him. The railroad came just right over here, and of course if you have a railroad you need to have a depot. The original depot was in a tent across the street. Then where the parking lot is now is where the first depot was. In 1902 they tore down that depot and built the wonderful depot that we still have here today. They decided that they would build a hotel right across the street from the depot, the Lovelander Hotel. Originally it was a wooden hotel. Then in 1913 they built the brick hotel that is there now. It could hold up to 42 rooms in it, and traveling salesmen would often stay there because they would bring their wares to town to try to sell to the merchants here. Right next to it was where Dr. Taylor's office was. Dr. Taylor was one of the first doctors in town, and he had a little house, his home, right behind there. Eventually, in 1926, the building was sold to the Elks Club, and it has been that ever since. Right next to it, where the cactus is, was a general store, and we believe that was the first retail store in Loveland. This beautiful building that you see back here, the Bonnell Mercantile, was a beautiful, beautiful store for this time period. Notice the wonderful architecture you see on it, and you can still see how it looks very much like a mercantile. Mercantiles were also called general stores sometimes because they carried absolutely everything. They would carry clothing and material and farm implements, just like your modern day Walmart, actually, I guess I would compare it to. The building over here is the Hertzinger and Harder building. This, we believe, was the first brick building in Loveland, and it was built in 1878. Notice the wonderful architecture on this building also. In the bottom was two businesses, a grocery store in one and a mercantile in the other, and up above was the Grange, and that's where they met. When you're walking through downtown Loveland, don't forget to look up and see the beautiful architecture that we do have here. I wanted to point out the stars that you see on this mercantile. Those look pretty, but they actually have a purpose. They hold rods that go all the way through the building to hold up the second floor, basically. But they put pretty fixtures on the outside, mostly stars you'll see, that make it look like a wonderful, wonderful part of the building. Another beautiful building I'd like to point out to you is the First National Bank building that you see on this corner. First National Bank actually opened in Loveland in 1905, but in 1928 they built this beautiful, beautiful brick building that has definitely withstood the test of time. Loveland, of course, was a farming community, but we did have culture here from the very beginning. And the building you see over there was the Bartoff Opera House building, and called many things actually, but mostly known as the Bartoff Opera House. It was built in 1884. There were office space on the bottom and store space on the bottom, but upstairs was an opera house. This could be used for concerts and for plays, sort of a community center, if you will, at the time. And even at one point in time, they would let people roller skate up there. You could pay 25 cents and get roller skates and the use of the hall up there. The Opera House would seat 400 people. So you can see we were a very cultured area also. This building over here, across the street, housed several different stores, but again, notice the architecture up on top. Those are the things that I think set us apart. The bottom has changed, but not the top up there. One of our most famous spots in downtown Loveland is the Rialto Theater that you see here. I told you we were a cultured town and area, and the Rialto Theater was built in 1920, so it is 100 years old. They said this was the finest theater north of Denver. It held 1,014 wooden seats. They may not have been very comfortable back then, but it was really exciting to have a movie theater here. First, the silent movies, of course, with the organ playing in the background. Later, the talkies. And I think there's a lot of people that still live in Loveland that remember going to the movie theater here at the Rialto and seeing some wonderful, wonderful movies. When you get a chance, please go in and check out the interior. The stage is original. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to visit, and I'm so thankful it was preserved. This building was originally the Larimer County Bank and built in 1890. It was sandstone and later turned to brick. I would have loved to have seen it nowadays, still the sandstone. Unfortunately, the bank closed during the Great Depression. Later, then it opened as the Loveland Bank, and then was purchased by the Stroh family and has continued to stay in their family all of these years. Originally in this space over here was the First United Presbyterian Church. Unfortunately, it burnt down, and the Union Building Plaza was built in 1905. This was the first three-story building in Loveland. Mercantile and stores were in the bottom, but on the top, at one point in time, there was another opera house there. Eventually, it became a hotel and was used as that for many, many years. Thank you you for accompanying me today on my stroll back in time, seeing the wonderful buildings that Loveland has and learning a little bit about their history. Please come down and do a walk around downtown Loveland. I could only show you a few things today. There's so much more to see. The side streets have so much history. There actually is a walking tour of Loveland that you can pick up at the Loveland Museum. And if you want to know more about the history, please do stop there at the Loveland Museum and see the wonderful, wonderful exhibits that they have there. Also, if you'd like to go for a bike ride, may I suggest taking a bike ride out to the Medina Cemetery. It's a wonderful, wonderful bike ride out there, and you can see where the cemetery has been preserved by the Loveland Historical Society. Also, we have the Milner Schwartz House down at the old fairgrounds that is preserved just the way it was when it first was built. And you can see what farm life was back then. Loveland has so much rich history, and thank goodness this is a town that loves to preserve that wonderful, wonderful history. So again, please take a bike ride, take a walk, and see the history of Loveland and the area, and don't forget to look up and see the wonderful architecture that we have downtown.